acquired infection and the healthcare associated infection and the prevention. So when we can say it is a hospital acquired infection, when the patient is admitted in the hospital and he doesn't have any infection, but after admission in the hospital after 48 hours, if the patient develop any sign infection, it is called as a hospital acquired infection. For example, patient admitted with the abdominal pain and he was catheterized, and after some time, after 48 hours, he developed a burning micturition or abdominal pain or high grade fever, and the culture comes positive. It is a hospital acquired infection. It is also called as a nosocomial infection. What is the mode of spread? It is there are two sources of infection. One is endogenous and second is exogenous. Endogenous means the bacteria or the organism is present in the body, patient's body, but it transfer from their one area to the another area, and it causes the infection. For example, E. coli. E. coli is our gut flora. But when it enter in the bloodstream infection or in the wound or in the trachea, it can cause infection. Second is exogenous or organism, which is transmitted from the other outside from the patient body, from the healthcare workers, from other patients, from environment or any equipment which is used for the patient. So this is called as the exogenous flora. So how the it spread, the entry and exit of microorganism. So there are orifices like a mouth, nose, ear, urethra, vagina, or rectum. Artificial orifice such as a tracheostomy, ileostomy, or colostomy. From the mucous membrane, which line most natural or artificial orifice like eyes, nose, and there is a skin break when there is a accidental damage in the skin. What CDC says? CDC is the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, who developed the guidelines for infection control. So according to CDC, the most common pathogen that can cause nosocomial infection are Staphylococcus aureus, which is present in our skin. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is an environmental organism. E. coli also is an environmental and endogenous organism, and some other infections are like a urinary tract infection, respiratory pneumonia, surgical wound infection, bacteremia, gastrointestinal and skin infections. The definition of hospital healthcare associated infections are the infections that patient acquired during the course of receiving treatment for any other condition within the healthcare settings. So as per the United States guidelines or data, around 1.7 million infections are occurred in the hospital and 99,000 associated deaths because of the nosocomial infection or hospital acquired infection. It happened only in America. So how to prevent this infection? So we have bundles. The CDC gave us some guidelines which is called as the bundles. So what is bundle? Bundles are structured way to improve the process of care and the patient outcome. And these bundles are evidence-based practices that are used by all the hospitals to prevent any infection and improve patient outcome. So what are the bundles? Measures of performance of evidence-based practices versus opportunity. The bundles are patient-centered. Either you have to use all the bundles. If you miss any one point, there is no effect. So all or nothing. Bundles are monitored to prevent the ventilator-associated pneumonia, to prevent COTI. COTI is a catheter-associated urinary tract infection, to prevent the catheter-related bloodstream infection, and to prevent surgical site infections. How we can prevent the ventilator-associated pneumonia? So we have some points, some measures which are called VAP bundles. By definition, ventilator-associated pneumonia is airway infection that must have developed more than 48 hours after the patient was intubated. Preventing pneumonia, there are so many goals. The first, VAP is leading cause of death in the hospital-acquired infection. So hospital mortality of ventilator patient who develop the VAP is 46% compared to 32% of ventilator patient who does not develop VAP. So the percentage of deaths are increased in VAP. So what are the bundles we can use to prevent VAP and improve the patient outcome? So first is the elevation of the head. So the head elevation should be 30 to 45 degrees. What is the rationale? Why we have to raise the head? So I cannot ask question because I cannot hear anyone. So sitting ventilated patient up reduce the esophageal reflex, pulmonary aspiration, and it prevent VAP. It also improves the patient ventilation. For example, the patient in supine position have the lower spontaneous tidal volume than the sitting one. That's why the patients are in the head up position. Second bundle points is use subglottic secretion drainage in the patient, those who are on ventilator for more than 48 hours. So subglottic aspiration, there are two methods. One is closed tube system suctioning, or second is a continuous subglottic drainage. So continuous means there are two suction jars with the low pressure which drain the oral secretion continuously, and the second is closed system where we can maintain the sterility while suctioning a patient. So we have to check the tracheal tube cuff always, either it is an endotracheal tube or a tracheostomy tube, because it prevents the aspiration. It also lowered the colonization in the airway, and it also then it prevents the pneumonia. Daily sedation vacation means every day doctors are stopping the sedation to check the patient response, so the patient can be extubated as soon as possible. So sedation agents should be stopped, not discontinued, because we have to check the patient response. It allows the patient to wake up. If the patient is cooperative and able to understand the command, leave the sedation off. Distressed or agitated patient require resedation. Recommendation, the sedation at, so there is a tempering of a sedation dose. Administer bolus as appropriate or required to achieve patient safety. Daily oral care with the chlorhexidine. So the new guideline says replace chlorhexidine with the normal saline. So why the oral care is important? Because the mouth is the most contaminated part of our body. There are so many bacteria lives in our oral cavity, which there is no name also. The scientists are not able to give a name. So more than 5,000 bacteria are living in our oral cavity. So dental plaque, it create a biofilm and colonize with the respiratory pathogen. So dental plaque can develop in the ventilator patient also, because there is no mechanical chewing and the absence of saliva. It develop a biofilm, and once the patient aspirate this secretion can cause VAP. Then dental plaque can be a significant reservoir for growing the pathogens that can cause ventilator-associated pneumonia. So chlorhexidine antiseptics has been proven, but the recent guideline says you can use normal saline for the oral hygiene. So deep venous thrombosis prophylaxis. I want to ask a question, but I cannot ask because I can't hear. So DVT prophylaxis, why it is important in the VAP bundle? So because when the patient is in the supine position under sedation, there is no blood flow from the lower extremities. So it can cause a thrombus. And when the patient is awake, sedation is stopped. Patient awake, he start mobilization. The thrombus can dislodge, and it can cause any infection to the patient, or it can cause death also. So the patient should be given deep venous thrombosis prophylaxis. So we use a DVT pumps, we use some medicines or stockings to prevent DVT occurrence. So peptic ulcer disease prophylaxis, why it is important? Because there is a gastric acid HCl in our stomach, and when the patient is on a ventilator under sedation, the diet or the regular diet is not taken by the patient, it can cause small gastric ulcers, and the pathogen which is living in our gastric stomach, it can travel through the bloodstream and it can cause infection to the patient. So we have to give a peptic ulcer to prevent a peptic ulcer disease. We have to give H2 receptor inhibitor, which is Pantosade. Bundle elements, the sedation to be reviewed. If appropriate, stop each day at the same time to check the patient response. All patients will be assessed for the weaning and extubation each day. Avoid supine position, aiming to have a patient head up to 35. Use chlorhexidine for the oral care and subglottic secretion drainage if the patient is on ventilator for more than 48 hours. Second, catheter-related bloodstream infection bundle. So the catheter-related infections are more frequent in the central line, which is inserted in the ICU setting. The major contributing factors are catheters are needed for extended period of time. Patient can be colonized with the hospital-acquired organism. So there are two type of bundle. One is insertion bundle. Second is a maintenance bundle. Insertion bundles when the central lines are inserted in the patient body. Second is maintenance, which we have to maintain on the daily basis. So what is insertion bundle? Optimum site selection. So the appropriate site selection is subclavian. Why subclavian? Because it is easily accessible. There are no hair, there are no skin folds. We can clean and observe on the daily basis. The most unhygienic site is the femoral site. Then the hand washing. The patient should be draped from head to toe to maintain a sterile field. The doctor who is performing a central eye insertion has to wear a sterile gloves, gown, cap and mask. Skin for the skin preparation, chlorhexidine 2% and 70% alcohol must be used for the skin preparation, and immediate dressing with the date and time of insertion. For the daily maintenance bundle, so before touching center lines, the staff must perform a hand hygiene. Standard dressing change not required until there is a contamination or oozing from the center line side. When we are touching the ports, it should be clean with the 2% chlorhexidine and 70% alcohol swab or 70% alcohol swab. All the bags which are used, all the lines which are used for central line medication administration or fluid administration must be changed 24 hours. All the tubing should be changed 72 hours. So patient should be reviewed on the daily basis for early removal to prevent any infection and screen the patient for sign and symptoms of infection. So for the central line, what are the sign and symptoms? There will be a redness, oozing, high grade fever for the patient, and when we send the culture, it turns to be positive. So central line dressing, what is recommended? It is a transparent, semi-permeable dressing. So transparent because we can easily observe the site. Semi-permeable because our skin is always sweating, so it evaporates the sweat. These dressings are reliable, to secure the site, permit continuous visual inspection, permit patient to bathe without suturing the dressing, and require less frequent change. So this is a good way to secure the central line. COTI bundle, catheter associated urinary tract infection bundle. So catheter securement, flow system, drainage of bag. So patient, as per our protocol, we have to secure the catheter on the thigh. Flow system, we should not disconnect the Follis catheter and the Urobag tubing. Drainage, always bag should be attached below the bladder level to prevent backflow. Drainage of bag, do not touch the floor to prevent any contamination. Always write down the date when the catheter is inserted, because the Follis catheter should be changed every 14 days and the silicone catheter for the 3 months. Urinary drainage bag should be changed when there is a requirement. We should not open the discontinue the bag and the Follis catheter. Wash hand, that is a mandatory. Wear gloves when handling Follis catheter, and perineal care. So every day in each shift, perineal care should be done with the mild soap and water. So as per the US data, 248,000 bloodstream infection occurs in the hospital each year, and the bloodstream infections are really serious because once the patient gets septicemia or bloodstream infection, the mortality risks are very high. Then comes to the surgical site infection. So what are the surgical site infection? When the patient is operated in the hospital and patient develop any sign of infection on the surgical wound site is considered as a surgical site infection. How we can prevent surgical site infection? So there is a prophylactic antibiotic which is given 1 hour prior to the surgical incision. So before incision of the skin, we have to give a prophylactic antibiotic. What is the rationale? It reduces the microbial burden of intraoperative contamination. So when there is a incision in the skin, the peak level of antibiotic is already present in the blood. If any pathogen, any microorganism enter in the bloodstream, it can kill by the antibiotic at the same time. So there is a selection of the prophylactic antibiotic. This is for the doctor. As per the guidelines, CDC guidelines or the hospital antibiotic stewardship, the doctor has to use the appropriate antibiotic to reduce the surgical site infection. Prophylactic antibiotic should be discontinued within the 24 hours. So why? Because if it is given for the long duration, it can cause a resistance. To prevent the drug resistance, we have the prophylactic antibiotics are given only for the 24 hours. If it is increased more than 24 hours, it is considered as a therapeutic treatment. So there is a three type of treatment. One is empiric. When the patient is having an infection, based on the clinical judgment, doctor starts the antibiotic, which is called as a empiric antibiotic. Prophylactic for the surgical safety, and the therapeutic antibiotic is considered based on the diagnostic or the culture result. For the cardiac surgery patient, we have to control the blood glucose level. Why? Because hyperglycemia can be associated with the increased hospital morbidity and mortality. Blood sugar level is high, there is a delay in the wound healing. So we have to maintain the pre-operative and post-operative blood glucose level. Appropriate hair removal as per the CDC guidelines and the practice. We should not use razors or blade. We have to use the surgical clippers. What is the rationale for not using a razor? Because it can cause a microscopic cuts, and the normal skin flora can enter in the bloodstream and it can cause an infection. So we have to use the surgical clippers. Maintaining a temperature for the patient perioperative during the surgery. The patient temperature should be maintained. The rationale, hypothermia increase the risk of surgical site infection. So the patient normal temperature should be maintained. If the patient is catheterized during the surgery, it should be removed as soon as possible, because the long time foreign body staying in the body, it can cause a infection and increase the risk of morbidity and mortality. Encourage patient to stop smoking before any surgery. For skin preparation after surgical clipping of hair, patient must take a shower 1 day prior of OT, and the day in the morning on the same day of surgery. I hope I'm clear with the all explanation. So ill staff should be refrained from the working. When the OT team is there during surgery, if any staff is having cold, cough, fever, should not enter in the OT to prevent any infection inside the OT. Surgical team keep no long nails or any artificial nails or any jewelry are not allowed in the OT. Surgical team must perform the appropriate hand hygiene. So for surgical team, it's from finger to elbow. It is called a surgical hand scrap. So it takes 3 to 5 minutes for the proper surgical hand scrub. So quality assurance is a method of determining whether nursing action and practice are met, and it establishes the standards. Any question in the hospital acquired infection and bundles? Shibra ma'am, I can't hear, so please text me if there is any question. And for the next class, there will be a questionnaire, small test before next class. Any question? Sapna, you can text in the group if there is any question. Chanda and Karima. If there is no question, I think I'm clear with the presentation. And there will be a small test in the next presentation, next class. Right? So we can exit now. Thank you so much. And hope next time I can hear your voice, Sapna.
Thank you, ma'am.